Thank you everyone for being here, Symbiosis 4 weekend. And we are really pleased to have with us Ines Sotomayor, and she's going to be talking about her work, her process. So I'm going to spotlight Ines, and then you can go ahead.
Okay, hello again. Thank you for being here with me one more time. I am going to show my process on some of the pieces that I presented here in Symbiosis. I'm going to share my screen just a second. Um, oh, sorry. No, again, because I have to share with the audio. I forgot. Okay, you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, so this is my demo talk about how I worked in some of the pieces that I presented here, mostly the wind and path of the black series and the blue series that I exhibit here in Symbiosis. So the starting point for those wind and paths is not something that I just invented myself. I had some inspiration to do them. And it was at the Liberated Line, the class from My Goal, that was the last class from that workshop. And it was very inspiring. So he showed us these big marks just to structure the page and then write outside the marks just to create a composition with calligraphy. And I loved those big bold marks in the background. But I wanted to write, I didn't want to write outside them. I wanted to use them just so they could be the path for my letter forms. And that's what I did on the Black series, the grief that is showed here. These are the two pieces that I have for the Black series, and both of them have the black marks on the background. And I write upon the mark. So for them, the tools that I used, very simple. There is my special brush, my hair dyeing brush, and that is really old, the one that I have, and it's better if it's more messy. For the black marks, I use some kind of waterproof black ink. In this case, I used Indian ink from Talents, but it could be Sumi ink, waterproof as well. Then to write upon the black mark, I use Dr. Martin's white that I love, and I use the blue pumpkin nib with the ink cage on it, which is very useful. So I can write longer before I should refill the nib. So it's really good for the flow. So I have my Tachikawa nib holder that I love because I tend to squeeze a little the holder, so it has this soft part in the middle that is very good for me. And for the details, at the end, I used the Rotrins from my dad with black and white ink from Rotring, because the Rotrins are really sensitive. You cannot use any ink on them, so I just used the original Rotring ink. This is a basic black path, so you can see how it's done. I just do the flow, very simple, very free, not thinking about anything. And here it goes. Sometimes the black mark is maybe too dense, and I just add some white ink on top of it. So I can add a little more texture to the path, as you can see. So I have these two examples of black path, and these are how they look when they are ready. The one with just the black ink and the other one with the white ink on top, just to create a little extra layer. So once I have the path, what I do is just write upon it. So I just select where to start, and once I start writing, I just follow the flow and try to complete all the path, just adapting the letter forms to the available space. So here is the video for you to see. In this case, I have almost a monoline. I'm not adding too much pressure to the nib, so it's just one weight in all the writing. And you can see how I complete all the available space and changing directions with the mark. And it's very zen to do this. And I just write until I have all the path completed. In this case, I wrote the text in the 3 languages, in Spanish, Portuguese, and English. I just make them fit somehow. I don't know, but they fit. And this is just the basic calligraphy on top of the black mark. Once I have this writing that is very basic and monoline, as I said, I add with the white ink with the rotring, a very fine line with the rotring, just to add some more details to the letters and to add a little more weight when I see that they need. I believe that this is my formal calligraphy background just talking to me, that I have to just adjust the letter forms a little and make them more complex. So this is the stage where I add some details. And after this, for the Black series, I also added some color wash to the counter forms, to all the counter forms. Here I used the red color because I love the combination of the black and white with the red. So I go through all the counter forms of the letters and I just complete them to add some color accents there. And here's a little example of me filling the counter forms. I use the nib to fill with the gouache. And well, this is the piece finished. In this case, the black mark with just the black ink with no white, with the basic calligraphy with the pen, then the details with the rotring, and at the end the color with the nib, and the finished piece with the black mark with the white ink on top. These are the same the marks that I did on the videos, the exactly marks. So this is how it looks at the end, and a little small writing on the outside. So this was for the black. And then I have these other marks for the blue series that I use blue and green colors, and they blend together. So my inspiration for this kind of marks, again, it was my gold. in his workshop, he showed us these beautiful big marks where he just drops a little color there, and the colors start mixing together and blending. So beautiful. So I thought that I should try that, and this was my starting point for the the blue series, the blue and green series. So the blue series, that is the comb in this case. These are the pieces that I presented here. So you can see that there is a lighter background, a lighter path in the background, and then I just add some colors to put some accents there, and they start blending. So for these, the supplies are pretty the same. It just what changes are the inks. In this case, I don't use the black ink. I use watered ink for the background path, very light, and then some drops of acrylic inks on top so they can blend with the background, and also the Parker Quink in the blue-black shade. So beautiful. And the other materials are the same as the black. So this is walnut ink already diluted. I just put some drops in the water just to make a dirty water. This I'm going to use as a background. So I create a form with this very light color, and I have to use a good amount of, so the background is very wet when I start dropping the new colors. So here is the magic. I just love this. And I complete the mark in the background. I have to do it in more than one time so the paper won't get dry. Otherwise the colors won't blend. So much fun. And then when it's ready, I just move it a little so that it can blend. And I add some few drops just to complete the space. This is the quink. It doesn't blend as well as the acrylic inks, but it just adds a little contrast there. And here's the finished wet, the finished wet mark. So this is how they look like when the path is wet, and then when it's dry, it changes a little. It's a little more bright in this case. But always beautiful. I love these colors. These are two different backgrounds that I did, and I'm going to use just one of them to write upon it. Here I add the writing. In this case, I apply a little more pressure underneath so I can more contrast the letters. And it's the same process, just completing all the background and distorting the letters. A little more speed so you can see it completed. Just go with the direction of the mark. Adapting the letters to it. Almost finished. And this is the letter, just the calligraphy finished. This. So once the writing is ready, I also add a little detail with the white rotring, just to give it a little more complexity to the letters, just adding some weights here and there. And it's the same process as in the Black series. In this case, I don't paint the counterforms. I just leave it like that. I could have wrote in some maybe green or blue gouache outside the mark, but I didn't in this case. But this is an option that I used on some other pieces. And this is the piece, uh, how it looks like when it's finished. It's very simple, but I don't know. I love the colors. And okay, that's my technique. I think that's all. Thank you. Thank you for watching.
Wow, that's great. We do have a thank you, Ines. That was lovely. We do have a question. Julie is saying, what kind of paper are you using? She doesn't see any buckling. Like when you added a lot of
Oh,
water, it didn't walk.
I used watercolor paper, not a good one, just I think that comes on Excel, the block. The so it's a student grade paper, but it was good in the it buckles at the end, but not on screen.
How heavy was the paper?
It's 140.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yep.
So you didn't need to
But it's
tape
very
it.
cheap.
Yeah, cheap. Okay, okay. So you said that it did buckle at the end. So you just flatten it again.
Yeah, but just in a regular way, just not the little buckle, just a general.
Okay, great. Wow, that was so good. You make it look so easy. Okay, how long did the pieces take to complete from paper to completion? Tox is asking.
I have to wait until the ink is dry. So, but these pieces are just A4. They are not just too big. So from I think in less than 1 hour I have them ready. But they have so many stages, so I have to wait until it's dry and then continue. And I can pick another one and just I don't track the time in my mind, but it's less than 1 hour. The pieces that I presented in the exhibition, they are much bigger, so it's not so easy to do.
Yeah.
Ah, I see. Got it. Great. Good questions. I was wondering how many pieces of trial and error did you have to produce?
In the beginning or for this video.
From the beginning.
At the beginning, I had a lot. But I don't think as they are errors. They are just learning and process and just trying to see what I like and what I like to use on the
Mhm,
final pieces.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when we see it in the final process, it looks so easy, but I know that a lot of work has gone in to bring it to this point. You know, all the
Yeah,
decisions you have to make, what tools, what ink, what combination of colors and so on. Is that right?
I did a lot of them in the past, so now it just come quickly because I just have this in mind. But yeah, I did, I don't know, 20, more than 20 pieces.
Whoa,
Yeah.
gosh. Okay, great. Anyone have questions or comments for Ines? Feel free to unmute. Actually, there's not that many of us. Marina,
Just for
you're
me.
unmuted. Do you want to say something?
Oh, I was having issues with the internet. I don't know why, but I thought it was me, but the TV worked. So it was not me. But I just want to say that Ines is very dedicated, is very detailed, is very neat and tidy and very professional. And her work is beautiful. And just like she said, it's part of a process. Sometimes she doesn't know which is the main piece of a group of a collection because she estimates every single piece of the process as something positive. And actually, that could be okay, definitely. But maybe because she's working on it, she's too much on it. Maybe for somebody looking it from outside, it would be easier to pick the most striking ones or the most, I don't know, eye-catching, you know? But I think all her work is beautiful. You should see her blossoming alphabets. Incredible. They are part of my when I teach, I show a lot of work from my students, and hers are one of my lectures, let's say.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's very talented.
Yes, very talented. Yay, a star is born. Julie, Julie, do you
Times
want
do you
to?
experiment with the
Oh,
difference between cold press and hot press watercolor paper?
Yeah, I used them in my process, but I didn't study them enough just to see the difference because when I use the black ink, it's just the same. You can see the difference. It's more important if the paper will allow me to write upon the
Yeah.
mark, not
Yeah.
just the mark itself.
Mhm.
So maybe if it's too rough, it's more difficult for me to write. So I tend to use hot press. Yeah, but in this case, this mark that I showed here are just cheap watercolor paper that is very good, but it's not a cotton or nothing like that.
But
So
also
maybe
you
the marks
used canvas. But
on
also you
the
used canvas, which has a
on the
total
yeah
different texture.
yes, on the exhibition I used canvas and I used acrylic for the mark in the background, not water ink.
okay,
So I could use the acrylic on top of it, and then
to build
it
the
would
layers.
be waterproof. Yeah.
Understand. Yeah. Julie, do you want to say something?
Well, I'm just so proud of Ines, and this is yet another wonderful presentation. So yeah, well done, girl. This has been just a wonderful process, and I'm so honored to be a part of it with you. And as she said, she has many of these pieces. I don't even know how many you have, like 40 of total, I mean, of all of the stuff that you did,
No, between 20 and 30.
including the other pieces, the other piece. Because it seems like we looked at a lot more, but we have a
Yeah.
Google Doc, a Google Drive that we put our images up, and she wins the award for the most images. It was hard to
Well, it's
choose.
not like
No, this has been great. You did a wonderful job.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
thank you.
Great. So I wanted to know when you said you made a lot of pieces, do you mean you made many versions of the same series or many
No,
different?
it's never intended. I never do a sketch before. it's all in the moment, the mark, the writing, and it's just going with the flow. It's just like the lettering. I don't think in the piece at the beginning. I know that I want to do a mark and I want to write, but then the mark appears and the writing appears, and it's so just magical. I don't know how it
No,
happens, but it
it's not
does.
magical. I was just thinking when you were doing the marks and doing the writing that there is 20 years of calligraphy practice behind that, and years of graphic design training and work. So I don't, I think that it's very, I mean, yeah, it is magical, and I can see the joy and the delight that, you had playing with colors and all that, but there is so much discipline and there is so much restraint. So wow, I really, this is one of the things that really moves me. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about was, maybe do you want to share a little bit about, your discovery of this third culture situation that you were emailing me about? Do you want to
Oh
speak a little bit
yes,
about that?
yes, that that theory that you shared with me in the previous presentation about the third culture kids, it was just
Yes.
touch nerve.
Yes, I know that. I understand that one very well.
It was shocking to me because uh, there is the whole theory there, and it's exactly the same thing that I just feel and I learned by experience, but I didn't know there was a study behind this. And it was so important to me to know about it, because just to know that there is some kind of study about what happens with the children that have to live abroad from very young age and just move from country to country and meet other cultures. This study just said that the kids, they have the culture from their parents, and that it's not their own, but they are, well, their parents, and then the culture where they are living in, actually the country or the new culture. And then the third culture is the mix of these two cultures together, and it's your own. You have to just process and adapt and create your own ideas about your culture. And it was so amazing. So thank you very much, Tori. It was really a gift. It was, yeah.
So I was, maybe I just tell everyone else in the room that when Ines was doing her presentation, the Meet the Artist presentation, she talks about how the fact that in her formative years, her family moved a lot because of her father's work. And then, during the developmental years when she was moved from country to country, her life was disrupted and she felt disjointed, not able to fit in. And out of that whole, it was actually painful. I mean, there's a certain level of adventure, but also a level of pain. And while she was producing her series of works for the exhibition, Ines used the art to process this pain. So while I was listening to her presentation, I understood that what she was going through is a description of many third culture kids, this phenomena, this concept. So I shared that with her, and then very diligently she went to look it up and Googled it. And when she found that there was actually a way to describe this condition, it gave her the vocabulary, and that was very helpful. I think that it was like an aha moment. But I wanted to speak to that because I think that a lot of times, well, one of the struggles that many trained calligraphers have is how to be expressive in your art. And I feel like when Ines reached into her own, the wellspring of her emotions, and then it just flowed out through the art. And I think that, like what Talk said, it resonated with many people. A lot of people were bidding for those pieces. The same pieces. Actually, Ines, there was another piece that somebody had emailed me after that and then said, oh no, I missed the timing. I would have wanted to bid for that piece. And then I told her, well, you can reach out to Ines. She's sort of like a curator for buildings. She buys the art for our public hospitals and so on. But anyway, the fact that you reached into your emotions, and tap in, and creating these very beautiful flowing pieces. It was what resonated with a lot of us. Yeah, Tox, you wanted to say something about third culture kid.
Oh, yeah, it's something, I guess it's something I've given a fair bit of thought to because I was raised, my mother is Jamaican, my father is Nigerian, I was born in Wales. So you have these three cultures in one household, but as a child, you don't realize that what you consider to be perfectly normal is not necessarily what everyone else is seeing as normal. This is just how your house works. You don't hear that your mother has an accent or your father, that's just how your mom and dad speak. And it's only when you leave home and you realize actually the things that you are grown up with, you're familiar with another culture in a way that it's not of your own because you haven't been raised in it, but
Mm.
you're so familiar with it. So it's almost like you're adjacent to this culture. And when you go to the country, you're things that you don't need to be told. For example, there's a thing where in both those cultures, you refer to your elders as auntie or uncle, Mrs., Mr. You don't call adults by their first name, generally. It's considered quite presumptuous for children, and it's just something that I didn't need to be told because that's just how we'd always been introduced to people and how we learned. And so it was something that you found that this wasn't the same with your friends at home. So in Wales, you had people calling their friends' moms by their first names, and you're like, this is very, very strange. I don't like this at all. But it's something that you don't consider, you don't think about as being odd or different until you move. And then you realize you've taken things with you. And so I found that for both my parents, the idea of home for them was somewhere other than where I considered home, because home for me was somewhere where you know the nursery rhymes, you speak the language, you don't need to think about what's being said. You just understand it because you've grown up with it as perfectly normal. So in my head, I'm like, okay, mom's Jamaican, dad's Nigerian, I'm a Brit because that's where I've been raised, but I'm very familiar with both Nigerian and Jamaican culture because I've been raised with it. So you've got all these three things and you don't realize the mix. And then now I'm living in Australia, which is interesting because, again, looking at my children now, they're being raised in Australia as Australians, but they'll be more familiar with a lot of the cultural things that I consider to be normal that maybe their friends don't have. And so you've almost got this next level again where you've got the translation, you've moved from one place to another. There's the bit that you soak up in the groundwater, and then there's the stuff you get from your parents and the social circles they move in. You got this blend. So it'd be interesting to say that question of where is home? Because for them, I suspect home is always going to be here, regardless of where I may feel the ties, because this is where they've learned the languages, they've fallen over with their friends, they've done all their primary schooling, done their naughty mischief, and grown up here. They may be familiar with some of the English turns of expression and some of the silly things that I say because I don't think about them. So they'll hear things from friends. And if we go to the UK, they'll be like, oh, this is familiar, but home might well be here. So again, that question of dislocation, you move, you go somewhere else, you soak up things. And it's almost like the blending of the paint that you're doing. You have bits, you've got the water underneath
Yeah.
with one color, and then you drop some other stuff in and it blends and moves in.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting one as an expat to find how people consider the concept of home and where those influences come in and where you find yourself in your place that you go.
Yeah.
This is
I
the
mean,
mix.
yeah, I'm interested in that concept about crossing cultures because, of course, as you know, the Symbiosis program is very much cross-cultural. And one of the thoughts that I have is what happens when we make art that is personal. And one of the things that we reach into, to talk about personal things is our culture. So, when we see a lot of I mean, it's quite distinctive, when you see, for example, somebody with a Japanese calligraphic background, if they were to do brushwork, it's different. It's just different. The feeling is different. And Marina understands that. She studied Japanese, brush calligraphy for, I think, a year. So the feeling is different. And I always want to know, what happens when you take bits of different cultures and you put it together and, what comes out of it. So the crossing culture or the crossing disciplines, I think that it's something that is very interesting to explore. So in the Symbiosis program, I do encourage people to reach to their cultural roots and find that connection rather than just make letters like the way that we were all taught. What happens when you transmute those letters into something that is personal? Yeah. Okay, Margaret is saying when she was in England, then in Australia is home. But then England is home where you are talking. She's going home to England. But lived in Australia for 50 years. Yeah. Yeah, it's a wonderful concept. Anybody else wants to contribute to the conversation? I can actually remove spotlight so you can all see each other. Yes.
I
Any
was going to
questions
ask,
or
I was
comments?
actually going to ask about not different question about the composition thing,
Mm,
because you mentioned that you'd got the idea for the winding path from the Mike Gold class, but you've also got a background in graphic design and very formal calligraphy and lots of different letter forms. Was this the point at which you decided you wanted to go more abstract and more kind of compositional, or was that something you had already been working towards and that class just happened to capture this particular style?
mm, good question.
No, I think I never did it before the my goals class. It was always just writing and making a letter composition, and so it could be readable and centered and just the traditional way. When I saw those black marks that he showed us, I was amazed, and probably because of my graphic designer background, I love the black and the bold colors and the contrast.
Yeah.
So I was amazed by this, and I wanted to try it, but I tried in a different way. It was not in that class that and and now I want to write inside every mark that I see. I see marks everywhere. I want to write inside them. Just
Okay, that's funny.
Right.
Thank you. Good question. Okay, well, no other questions or comments. Then I'm going to stop the recording here. So thank you everyone for joining.